6:45. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by Lal Malavarachi and read by Lavani Vijayatunga. First, to take a look at the headlines. Health authorities urge the public to wear face masks properly and to adhere to the health protocols. Sri Lanka's COVID cases tally surpasses 100,000 and the death toll climbs to 642. Wearing face masks has been made mandatory. The Lanka urges the public not to visit Anuradhapura sacred site in large numbers. Sri Lanka reimposes mandatory 14-day quarantine for visitors. And in news overseas, Indian hospitals send SOS as record COVID-19 deaths register. Those are the headlines, and now more to the details of the local news. Packed shops and public transport during the last few days would have contributed to the spike in new cases, the Army commander observed. Professor at the Department of Immunology and Molecular Medicine at the University of Sri Jayawardhanapura, Neelika Malavage, said people have to be extremely careful and strictly adhere to the health protocols to reverse the current trend in the country. Not only are the numbers increasing after the new year, but there is a new variant spreading in the country now. This new variant is dangerous than the variants we saw in the first and the second waves. Professor Mavalige warned that this new variant is airborne, unlike the old COVID-19 respiratory virus, which was transmitted by droplets of saliva or discharge from nose. This virus will transmit and contract at crowded places, so everyone must avoid such places until the threat clears. Accordingly, the members of the public have been urged to wear the face mask properly and to adhere to health protocols introduced by the authorities to prevent the spread of the virus. The government, meanwhile, issued a revised set of guidelines with regard to public activities in response to COVID-19. And these guidelines are effective until the 31st of May. Confirmed COVID-19 cases in Sri Lanka crossed the milestone of 100,000 as 826 more persons were tested positive for the virus yesterday. Epidemiology Unit's data showed that the total novel coronavirus infections detected in the island since the outbreak of the pandemic now stands at 100,517. In the meantime, the recoveries from the virus infection reached 94,155 yesterday. Accordingly, 5,724 active cases are still under medical care. Sri Lanka's COVID-related death toll climbed to 642 yesterday as 4 more persons fell victim for the virus. 2 foreign nationals who were living in Colombo are also among the latest coronavirus victims. This is the news from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. And we continue with more local news. Chief incumbent of the Anuradhapura Ruwanveli Mahasaya, Venerable Pallegama Hemaratna Nayaka Thera, urged the public not to visit the sacred city in groups as COVID-19 pandemic is highly spreading in the country. The accumulation of devotees in high numbers would not be encouraged in the sacred city due to the current situation. Eastern Province Governor Anuradha Yahampath has appealed to the public to refrain from visiting the Tricomali district except in a matter of urgency, as the health sector has identified an increase in the number of spread of COVID-19 virus in the district. The governor also instructed the security forces to prevent people from engaging in other non-essential travel and activities by imposing roadblocks. Meanwhile, District Secretary Nandana Galabade asked the public not to visit the Nuwara district these days. Army Commander Shavendra Silva says that people should strictly adhere to the health guidelines spelled out by the ministry in the coming days to prevent a tragic situation like India. Sri Lankans have a good understanding of how to stay safe from COVID-19 pandemic, he said, speaking to media at a special press briefing at the Information Department. However, we are in a time where the situation in our immediate neighbor India has gotten worse. The country recorded its highest of over 330,000 new cases per day last week. More than 2,000 people die every day. The Army Commander said until New Year, the country successfully contained the new COVID virus tally daily figures to 150 to 200. But by April 18th, the number went up to 300 and by yesterday has risen up to 900. The vast majority of the COVID-19 infections were recorded from Kuliyapitiya, Ganewatha, Wattala and Divulapitiya areas. Colombo, Gambha, Kurunegala, Kaluthara, Galle, Anuradhapura, Puttalam, Jaffna, Hambantota, Kandy and Tricomali districts had high numbers comparatively. Going by this distribution of development, we expect the COVID-19 cases will increase within the coming few days. People celebrated Urdu with little regard for health guidelines. The government did not impose strict regulations during the festive season, but issued guidelines with strict advice to comply. The Health Ministry has advised the people to celebrate New Year at home, but it seems people have paid little attention to these warnings, he added. And to conclude the local news, the headlines once again. Health authorities urge the public to wear face masks properly and to adhere to health protocols. Sri Lanka's COVID cases tally surpasses 100,000 and the death toll climbs to 642. Wearing face masks has been made mandatory. The Nayakathere urges the public not to visit Anuradhapura sacred site in large numbers. Sri Lanka reimposes mandatory 14-day quarantine for visitors. And that was the local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
The main news story for this morning, Sri Lanka has reimposed a 14-day quarantine for the visitors to the country as the number of COVID-19 cases sharply increased following the New Year's celebrations. The National Operations Centre for Prevention of COVID-19 Outbreaks says that the quarantine period for visitors, returnees and tourists to Sri Lanka from abroad will be extended to 14 days. The quarantine period for visitors was reduced to 7 to 10 days. Under these circumstances, the quarantine period will be extended again to 14 days, health officials announced. However, the mandatory 14-day quarantine will not be applicable to those who have been vaccinated. And that was the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
And in Watchlight this morning, police media spokesman DIG Ajit Rohana says that it is compulsory to wear face masks and to follow health guidelines. He said several police officers have been deployed in civil to look into this matter. Stern action will be taken against those who do not wear face masks. And that came to you in Watchlight.
World News. Brought to you by courtesy of
the best discount in this Urdu season, People's Leasing Polywasi. Enjoy an interest rebate of 25% from People's Leasing for all the leasing facilities during this Urdu season. Call 011-206300 for more details. Conditions apply.
People's Leasing, the trusted leader.
Headlines of the world news. Indian hospitals send SOS as record COVID-19 deaths register. Iraq COVID hospital fire, at least 23 dead after oxygen tank explodes. A man arrested after infecting 22 people with COVID-19 in Mallorca in Spain. Those were the headlines, and now we move on to the details of the world news. Indian hospitals say that their patients are dying because of a shortage of oxygen as COVID-19 cases and the number of deaths set new records for a third day running. India has recorded nearly 1 million infections in 3 days with 346,786 new cases overnight into Saturday. At the Jaipur Golden Hospital in Delhi, 20 people died overnight because of lacks of oxygen, an official said. The government says it is deploying trains and the Air Force to transport supplies to hard-hit areas. At least 23 people have been killed in a fire at a hospital treating coronavirus patients in the capital of Iraq, Baghdad. Dozens of others were injured in the blaze, which erupted at the Ibn Khatib hospital last night. Reports say an accident has caused an oxygen tank to explode, sparkling the blaze. Videos on social media show firefighters scrambling to extinguish the flames as people flee the building. A man has been arrested in Spain on suspicion of assault after allegedly infecting 22 people with COVID. The 40-year-old is alleged to have continued to come to work at the gym despite of having a cough and a temperature of more than 40 degrees Celsius. He is said to have walked around the place of work in Mallorca, pulling down his mask, coughing and telling colleagues he was going to infect them. 5 colleagues and 3 fellow gym goers later tested positive. Another 14 people, family members of the infected, also came down with COVID, including 3 one-year-olds. And to conclude the world news, the headlines once again. Indian hospitals send SOS as record COVID-19 deaths register. Iraq COVID hospital fire, at least 23 dead after oxygen tank explodes. A man arrested after infecting 22 people with COVID-19 in Mallorca in Spain. And that was the world news.
World News. Brought to you by courtesy of
The best discount in this Urdu season. People's Leasing Polybasi. Enjoy an interest rebate of 25% from People's Leasing for all the leasing facilities during this Urdu season. Call 011-206-300 for more details. Conditions apply.
People's Leasing, the trusted leader.
In development news, the government and the World Bank recently signed a loan agreement to the amount of $69.33 million for the Kandy Multimodal Transport Terminal Development Project, which will develop the goods shed terminal in Kandy. Located in the city centre and providing access to the railway station, the modernized terminal will integrate rail, bus, three-wheeler and pedestrian traffic to make it a safer and a more efficient place. Kandy is the capital city of the Central Province. The Central Province contributes 11.5% to the country's GDP, only second to the Western Province. The city is also a major tourist attraction and was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in the year 1988. Kandy's central location, with the road access to all other regions in the island, offers it the most potential to become a residential and a commercial hub. From that, we move on to sports news. Sri Lanka finished the day on 512 runs for just 3 wickets, a shortfall of 29 runs in reply to 541 for 7 scored by Bangladesh when bad light halted the play on the 4th day of the first test match being played at Pallekele Stadium in Kandy yesterday. Skipper Dimuth Karunaratne had taken his score to 234 runs, inclusive of 25 boundaries, while his partner Dhananjay De Silva was also still unbeaten on 154 runs with 20 hits to the ropes. The pair had batted with a mixture of caution and aggression to put on 322 runs in an unbroken partnership for the 4th wicket. The pair added 252 runs, the highest 4th wicket stand by Sri Lanka against Bangladesh, and were closing it on a highest partnership for any wicket, that is 258 between Michael Hussey and Sean Marsh at the Pallekele International Stadium. That was the sports news. Business news coming up.
Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
In business news, Sri Lanka's rupee closed weaker at 202 to 204 levels in the 1-month dollar on Friday, while bond yields remain unchanged, dealers said. Sri Lanka's rupee closed around 101 to 103 in the 1-month forward market on Thursday. Average telegraph transfer rates of the dollar at a commercial bank was 198.48 to sell and 192.51 rupees to buy last Friday, according to the Central Bank data. That was the business news, and economic news follows.
Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
Economic News. Courtesy of...
I bought my daughter a laptop for her work by managing my finances. Whatever the expenses may be, I can't afford to miss out on life's special moments like her birthday or our anniversary. So you need to invest to make your family's future flourish.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibilities. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
And in economic news, headline inflation as measured by the year-on-year increase and change in the National Consumer Price Index increased to 5.1% in March 2021 from 4.2% in February 2021. This was due to the statistical effect of the low base prevailed in March 2020. Meanwhile, the food inflation year-on-year increased to 8.8% in March 2021 from 6.9% in February 2021, and non-food inflation year-on-year increased marginally to 2% in March 2021 from 1.9% in February 2021. The change in the NCPI measured on an annual average basis decreased to 5.3% in March 2021 from 5.5% in February 2021. That was economic news, and the weather report to conclude.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
And finally, the weather report. The Met Department says showers or thunder showers will occur at times in the western, Sabaragamuwa and southern provinces. Showers or thunder showers may occur at several places in the northwestern, central, Uwa, north central and eastern provinces during the afternoon or night. Heavy rainfalls, about 100 millimeters, can be expected at some places in the western and Sabaragamuwa provinces and in the Gaul, Mathura, Kandy and Nuwara Eliya districts. And to conclude this bulletin of news, let's get back to the headlines once again. Health authorities urge the public to wear face masks properly and to adhere to health protocols. Sri Lanka's 19 cases tally surpassed 100,000 and the death toll climbs to 642. Wearing face masks has been made mandatory. The Naikathera urges the public not to visit Anuradhapura sacred city in large numbers. Sri Lanka reimposes mandatory 14-day quarantine for visitors. And in news overseas, Indian hospitals send SOS as record COVID-19 deaths register. And with that, we conclude this bulletin of news.